All right, everybody, it's that time on the Adam Thompson Show. You know what time it is. We're going to be going into the hell in a cell, as I call it. It's the debate time. I'm bringing in my panel of experts. We're going to tackle all the trending topics, breaking news stories that are going on, not just in our country, but around the globe. These are the things that you've been tweeting about and sending us email questions about. So we're going to try to tackle it this week, as always. And joining us in the panel this week will be radio talk show host Stacey Washington, political strategist and radio talk show host Brandon Jones, and Democratic strategist Lisa Durden. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.
How you doing?
All
Great to be
right,
here.
I want to get it obviously started off with a somber note about a horrible story that just broke in the last day or so. Of course, I'm talking about the Charleston church shooting where Dylan Storm Roof, who was just recently captured, obviously went into a church in what seems to be a very clear hate crime to me. Killed 9 people, 6 men, 6 women, and 3 men. Said all kind of racial epithets before the shooting took place.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I'll start with you on this, Lisa. It seems like every year, once a year, or something close to that, we seem to have some type of horrific mass shooting that takes place in this country. There's been, so many year to year. Of course, you go to Sandy Hook and so on. Do you think that a situation like this, which is, again, just as horrific like the others, no rhyme or reason behind it, do you think that this is going to change any of the gun debate dialogue that we have out there? Of course, one side, Second Amendment rights, people kill, not, guns. And then there's going to be the people that say, well, you take the guns out or restrict it even to greater degrees, maybe we can prevent these kind of tragedies. Where do you stand on this?
I'm all for gun control, so that's a wonderful thing. But I think we can marry gun control with what we call hatred. So we need to be working on gun control at the same time on the same track as we are talking about hate, because the gun didn't hate those black people. Dylan hated those black people. That's what really killed him, his hatred, because let's be frank, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, we get murdered with things like a choking. It's not always a gun. A stabbing, we get stomped, and we get shot. So in the world called black, we get murdered with or without the gun. So we need to make sure that we don't just look at the gun control issue. We need to look at the hate crime aspect of this man's gun, because he hates black people.
Okay, let me have you jump in on this, Brandon. What's your take?
Well, obviously, I think that we need to, look at him as case by case on what Dylan's motivations really are. I think he's made himself perfectly clear that his heart is still full of a lot of hate. But, racing to gun control and racing to grabbing people's guns doesn't really address the issue. And I agree, blacks are dying at a disproportionately rate, but unfortunately it's at the hands of other black men. And right now our gang violence is kind of saturating the statistics where it's hard to even get the appropriate data and drill down where we can actually make appropriate improvements, because most of handgun violence, gun violence stats, all those things are masqueraded in the data, where the gang violence, especially in places like Chicago and Detroit and areas like that, have just been so rampant and out of control. So a situation like this, of course, a knee-jerk reaction is people will hijack the topic for their own political gain, try to look at the motivation to look at gun control and trying to do some things. And it's kind of sad that that's where we're going to go. We can't have more, I think, civil discussions and debates along the way and not wait to respond to a tragedy.
Let's not cloud this conversation, young man, trying to blame black people for killing other black people when today's topic is that monster who murdered all those black people in the church. You are out of order. That's a problem. Don't sit here and bring up what has happened in our community as a relatable thing to what he did today. One has nothing to do with the other. The discussion right now is this monster, this fool, shooting up black people because he hates black people. Now when it comes to black-on-black crime, we are aware of that, but let us black people take care of home. That's not your job to discuss. That's my job to discuss and my black community to discuss. But today, let's not muddy the waters. The bottom line is this man belongs in a prison cell with a needle in his arm. He needs the death penalty.
Yeah, I don't think
Well,
anyone's
I'm
going
not
to
going to
disagree with you now, Lisa. If I could jump in, I just want to get Stacey. I know you want to respond, Brandon. Let me just have Stacey jump in on this, though. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're talking about someone who's mentally ill. He has a prior history with the police of being arrested. And apparently, I mean, not just judging from the pictures, because you can't judge if someone's mentally ill by their looks, but judging from his history, what we're finding out about him, and we haven't found it all out, the man was mentally ill. So it comes back to, instead of gun control, it comes back to getting our mental health services to a place where individuals who need help, who need to be removed from the streets or given psychological counseling, or at the very minimum monitored so that they can't get their hands on guns, those people need to be addressed, as opposed to disarming law-abiding citizens like myself. I am opposed to gun control because as a woman, I don't have the upper body mass to defend myself from an assailant. And if I'm home alone, my husband's out of town, my best defense is my firearm. Numerous as they may be, I want to have access to those, and I don't want people who are trying to control a mental health issue to come into my realm as a legal, law-abiding citizen and try to disarm me. As a black woman, I have every right to access firearms under the Second Amendment to defend my home, my property, and most of all, myself and my children.
Well said, Stacey. Brandon, let me just follow up with you. You know, there's going to be the whole revisited debate now, Second Amendment versus gun control. In this situation, this young man who obviously had mental health issues, he didn't get the gun himself. He got the gun from his father, who I guess went through the process of legally getting it, but then the father gave it to him as a gift. Do you think we're at the point now, because we saw a similar situation, I believe, in Sandy Hook, where the mother gave the firearm to the assailant in that case? Are we at the point that people who legally obtain guns, but then give them to a third party, whether it's a friend, they give it to a family member or somebody else, are we going to start to see laws being passed, you think, where they will now be held accountable, either criminally or civilly, for such actions? Because obviously this young man couldn't get a gun on his own, it appears, but yet the father gives him one.
Well, I think that discussion has come in the past. There's been talks about, looking at insurance, looking at different lawsuits, whether someone is basically being complicit in applying in the crime when they are supplying the weapon to someone who may or may not be able to get it legally. And I think there is a reasonable discussion that we can have on that legislation that can, be looked at, and as so well put. I mean, obviously, we're talking about a mental health case. We're talking about someone whose heart is full of incredible amount of evil to make the decision that they did to go in and murder innocent people in a church. So, like I said, I was not trying to be disrespectful to the black community, but at the same time, these aren't really as related as some people are making it. When the president goes forth and he's immediately trying to make comments in regard to the overall gun violence, that's a statistic that is very well not completely related to this directly. And I think that's my point, is that we need to make sure we're having discussions about how to best prevent this from happening in the future. And that is, again, mental health, possibly trying to make sure that the bills are put in place to make sure that if you're transferring ownership to another person, that they're required to get the appropriate paperwork, background checks, those kinds of things can be done. And, I don't think many people will oppose that. I think that it is a discussion and a debate that we can have.
Well, Lisa, let me bring you back in on this, Lisa. Do you think that President Obama spoke too soon, instead of really focusing on condolences to the victims of this horrific crime, to immediately interject argument and debate again about gun control on the same day or immediately thereafter? Do you think that it's too soon? At some point, I'm assuming it has to take place again, but do you think that that was the wrong time to get this message going?
I must correct you. President Obama didn't do one instead of the other. He did one in addition to. He did do the condolences, and in addition to the condolences, and I might add they were done very well, he also said this is a time where we can continue the discussion about gun control. This is not the first president who discussed gun control, and it should continue to be discussed. Now, I'm not dogmatic about gun control, because I do understand, I keep forgetting the young lady's name who just spoke, about being able to protect yourself. But there has to be some way where we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong individuals, because this man was not protecting himself. And let's correct ourselves. He's not a young man. He's a beast. This is not a gentleman. He's a monster. And I'm going to correct something else. This is not obviously a mental health issue. This is obviously a mass murderer. He massacred people. He obviously belongs in prison. So this is the time to talk about the way we can control guns to keep them out of the hands of ignorant fools like this beast.
Well, more than just this individual we're talking about, he got the gun from his father.
Correct.
What's your thoughts on what needs to happen to it in a situation like this? That's really the topic I like to explore.
Any kind of gun control is, I said, like this beast. So it could be a police officer whose gun, which has happened many times, got into the hands of their children. That's not just about this man. I said people like this man. So in his case, he intentionally used the gun, but we have seen situations where someone had a legal gun, like a police officer, and a child within the home got a hold of it and shot the friend in the head. So I do feel across the board we need gun control in terms of the safety of the gun, who should have the gun, background checks, and not in his case, but in some cases, doing mental health background checks, all of those kinds of things to see what kinds of criminal backgrounds, because we can still get guns today without ever getting background checks. You can go into certain stores and buy a gun. You can go and get your uncle's gun. That's not true. Yeah, well, okay.
You can't go into stores and buy guns. You can go on the street and buy them, but you can't go to Walmart and buy a gun without a background check. That's illegal. And if they're doing that, then you have to turn that in, and that Walmart would be shut down. There's no way you're going to have me sit here and accept that. I don't accept that because every time I bought a weapon, every person I know, and I know plenty of people who are gun owners, the law is before you can purchase a firearm at a regular gun dealer like Walmart, you have to have a background check and then run it right there in the store. If there's any flag at all, you're put on hold 24 hours, 48 hours, or until the hold is resolved. They contact the FBI, the database is searched, and the hold is resolved. There is no purchasing at regular buyers. Now, you can buy on the street, and that's the issue here.
Right.
You can control guns all the way down to the ground. You can disarm every American. There will always be guns on the street. You don't have an argument
with me about that because I agree with you. You don't have an argument with me about having a gun to be able to protect yourself. So I'm not dogmatic. I'm not far to the left or the right. So
I'm not talking about that. I'm highlighting what you just said, which is how you can obtain firearms through legal means without a background check.
Dylan didn't get the gun illegally. Dylan got the gun from his dad. There are many people who don't buy guns on the street who have access to guns, like police officers' kids or someone at your house and you own a gun.
Let me change the direction because you bring up police officers.
Well, you can't bring up guns at my house because my guns are secure. You can't bring me my guns.
Everyone says their gun is secure until somebody blows somebody's brains out. We all said that.
But I think you guys are missing the point here of what I'm trying to raise. Lisa, you bring up the point of a kid and may get an officer's gun at home. That to me is a careless officer not lockboxing, putting the gun in the lockbox.
No, it's not always a careless officer. Sometimes kids can get through locks and these other things. There's no real guaranteed way to keep a gun out of someone's hands other than not have the gun.
What I want to focus on is a situation like here where a parent knowingly, it wasn't accidental, there's no negligence involved here. The parent gave the gun to this person. Do you think that we need to see some change? And you're very obviously pro Second Amendment, Stacey. So you jumping on this too?
But pro Second Amendment doesn't mean I don't understand. Wait a minute, I'm not sure what her name is, but we have to be able to all have a conversation here. Lisa, you have to allow someone else to respond. What you're saying. We don't, like you just said, that you're not dogmatic. We don't actually have a huge point of disagreement on whether or not the person who passes the gun to the one who does the killing has any culpability. I have my father's in law enforcement right now. He's wearing a gun and a badge today. He wears it every day. He's worn it every day that I've been on this earth. I understand causality and the chain of events. So this is not you and me arguing about whether or not the father of this shooter should be held culpable for knowing if it can be proven, and I believe we're pretty much there, but we need to be in a court of law with that he knew that his son had mental health issues, yet still gave him a gun, then he becomes a part of that criminality. He becomes an accessory to the crime for providing the means of doing the killing, for not reporting that his son was violent or had violent tendencies or intended on harming blacks. Surely someone in this man's life heard him talk about black men raping white women and how they should die, and no one said a thing. That's where I'd like to see this go, not just the round-robin discussion about how we can control guns, because the only people who pay attention to laws that control guns are law-abiding citizens. Criminals will always have a means to gain access to firearms. And if they don't use firearms, they will use the most often used weapon, which you mentioned earlier, which is hands, feet, and blunt instruments. Those kill more people than guns do every year, going back ad infinitum, hands, feet, and blunt instruments. So if we're going to start controlling things, we got to control knives, you got to control hands, you got to control feet, and blunt instruments. We don't need to even go into that. What we have to do here is start saying, if you're a parent and you know you have a child who's mentally ill, and you keep firearms in the home where that child can get to them, and that child goes and kills someone, both of you will be standing trial for those murders. And that's when you'll see people start stopping with this behavior, which is, if I had a mentally ill child at home, I wouldn't keep firearms in my home, lockbox or no. That would not be something that was open to me, because a mentally ill person will find a way to get access to those weapons. But we don't have that conversation at all, and I really think we do need to have it.
Well, in this particular case, we're confusing parenting, bad parenting, with gun control. In the case of Dylan, like you said, the host said, the father gave the gun to Dylan. So this wasn't a gun control issue. This was a bad parenting issue. So we can't merge the two issues.
I agree with that.
All right, folks, we got to move on. We could talk about this for hours and hours, and the debate still wouldn't get resolved.
It's a tough issue. It really is. But I really when people get overly emotional and they don't understand that there's a lot we can agree on, and if we find the areas where we can agree, that's where we start to have solutions. So because we can fight about the things we don't agree on all day and never move an inch. But if we can find something to latch onto.
The whole goal is to try to find common ground and solve problems, not keep problems prolonged and keep them going. All right, so let's move on to something. Since we're talking about the racial overtones, obviously, of this horrific incident, we all know this, to me, is clearly a hate crime. As a criminal defense attorney for 25 years, if this one doesn't qualify, I don't know what does. Let's move on to another huge story in the news involving race. Rachel Dolezal. I'm gonna hold back on both Stacy and Lisa, and I'm gonna let Brandon lead off on this one.
Okay, Brandon.
I mean, listen,
Lisa, I hope you hold, man. Buckle up, man.
I've been getting the most insane tweets and emails about this, and people making crazy points. You know, they said Bruce Jenner just came out saying his whole life he felt like he was a woman, and obviously he went to his change. And now we have people saying my whole life I'm white and I felt black, or black and felt white. I mean, what are we going to see now? How is the door open now? Because this, to me, it's just so ridiculous, the position that she's taking, what she's saying. I don't buy it.
How is that the same thing? I mean, my gosh, how is it the same thing that you feel like you're a man or a woman trapped in a different body? How is that the same as feeling like you just have an affinity for black people? I mean, please show me how those two things are the same. One is based on sex and, and the other one is all about how you just want to be able to rock braids and dreads and you just want everybody to think you're black. That's not the same thing. She deceived people, at least, and I don't agree with the Caitlyn Jenner drama, but that's not my business. He can do whatever he wants to his own body, and I can call him whatever I want to because that's my prerogative, but he did not deceive me. She did.
This is as crazy as he gets. Wait, I want Brandon to jump, and you've been quiet
that's true.
for a while.
I agree. I agree.
I tell you, I don't know how the black community is just not outraged. I mean, she's put on this facade. She's exploiting race to better her career and find a place in the NAACP. She's presenting photos with a black man as her father, misleading people and perpetuating this myth. As she mentioned, using the dreads, the way she teases her hair and all that. You look a picture of this when she was a child, and she's whiter than my children. I mean, it is just appalling that someone is creating such a facade and then not even being apologetic about it. When she's interviewed, she's like, yeah, I'm not apologetic about it at all. I'm black on the inside. And it's like, you still don't understand why that is so offensive. You still don't understand why that's so insulting, or should be, to the black community. And I'm been very, very pleased to see many people calling her to task on that and really not racing to support her. But as you said, with social media, some people are. I don't want to berate on this woman, and I don't want to treat her badly. But at some point, whenever you're still questioning the genetic viability of your biological parents, she may actually have a little bit of mental illness going on. Whenever you actually
a little bit.
Well, I've never had a genetic test done to prove they're my parents. I'm like, well,
you can't be a little bit pregnant.
Crazy.
She is a sociopath. And furthermore, for them to play this game with transracial, and that is defined by insulting black culture, black music, the way we so-called look, is really a minstrel show. And this is a whole shucking and jiving thing. And some man tweeted me on Facebook and said, you need to understand what you're saying because black people started shucking and jiving. Get your history straight, homie. You all made us shuck and jive in movies. Black folks got paid to shuck and jive for a couple of coins to entertain white folks. We didn't create shucking and jiving. We just used the word to identify blacks who did it after we were no longer having to do it to get money. So she is just, a buffoon, actually. And then, when you look at Madonna and you look at people like Eminem, they embrace black culture. He's a rapper. She's always embraced black culture, black look, the voguing, and everything that there would be called black culture, but she doesn't claim she's black. This lady's a sociopath. This lady's a narcissist. This lady is sick, and her mother said, I hope she gets help. And I agree with her mom.
Well, let me tell you, it's very clear to me that she put herself above everybody. This whole thing is as absurd as it gets to me. And contrary to what you said, you have no axe to grind whether you want to see anything bad happen to a Brandon. I don't mind if it does because I find this reprehensible. To me, it's
wait a minute. So let me jump in here. I have to say, and I understand what he's saying. He doesn't want to see anything bad happen to her because it seems like she's mentally ill, and she actually is starting to present as someone who may have some really deep-seated issues that are way beyond what we can handle on Black Twitter and ripping into her on Facebook. This is something that she needs to be in, psychiatric care and getting some assistance because she doesn't actually believe those two white people are her parents. But there's some besides the sociopathy that's present. There is something else that is much more insidious, and that is her desire to deceive black people, to take scholarship money that was set aside for blacks, to sue black institutions for removing her scholarship money when they found out there was something amiss with her application and her presentment. There's issues here with her psychologically damaging individuals that have been in her life for 10 years who thought she was a black person and now have found out she's been braiding their hair, she's been in their lives as a black person and deceiving them, not just them, but the public at large through her position at the NAACP and through her teaching position in Africana Studies at a major university. So there are students who have been harmed by her.
You guys are way too nice. She needs to lose her job. The fact that she accepted funds under false applications and false...
I agree with that all the way.
She should be criminally charged and she should be prosecuted. This to me is disgusting. I like the reference you make, Lisa, because immediately when I was reading more and more about her, Spike Lee's movie Bamboozled just jumped right in my mind, and I was like,
we've been hoodwinked, we've been bamboozled. And I'll take this one step further. I'm going to go somewhere that nobody wants to go. I'm calling for an investigation of the NAACP because I am saying to you today, and I've said it on a couple of other shows, that the NAACP knew exactly who this woman was. They knew she was white because they vet people for years. You don't just become the vice president of the NAACP Spokane chapter because you have a great resume and you're getting it based on merit. This is years of going to the $1,000 dinners, kissing the ring, putting money into people's campaigns who they support, licking people's butts, hobnobbing and coochie. Hobnobbing and coochie crunching.
I'm dying over here. I'm dying.
All the right people. So this is a long vetting process. It's not the official vetting process, but it's a long vetting process. So by the time she did all of that for many years, then they brought her in this position. So don't think that the NAACP did not know she was black. They just rolled with it. So I want to know why that organization, who's supposed to be there for me, a black person, is letting her do that. They just kept it silent and rolled with it. So I want to find out
defending her. They've been defending. And not just defending her publicly, standing up for her.
I like where you're going with that, Lisa, because it is very true. This was a very public position.
Absolutely.
She's out front. She's in the public eye. She's a spokesperson, a representative.
Absolutely.
And they vet these people out. You're
like crazy.
Not just that. It's the same as when you meet somebody and you know something is off. You can't tell me she met all those black people and none of them said there's something ain't right about her. Come on now.
But
that is beyond the pale.
No, it's not even a question mark. It's not even a question mark. There's no question. They vetted her. They did background checks. They absolutely, definitively knew they were hiring a white woman. So there was no question, is she or is she ain't black? No, they knew she was.
If she's disputing who her parents are, maybe I need to call Maury Povich and we'll get her out there for the thing.
You know what? That would be a good show. But they got a lot going on.
Let's switch topics. Let's talk a little more presidential politics now. Donald Trump obviously just announced he's going to run now for president.
Oh, God.
Let you lead it off. Do you think he's legit this time, or is this just another publicity stunt? He just wants to get his name out there, and he's going to bow out at some point? Or do you think really this time he's going to go all the way?
So I don't see him as a serious political presidential candidate. I'm on the right, so I'm looking at him, and I'm not seeing a serious. I do think Donald Trump is a serious businessman. I think he makes lots of money. I think he bounces back from difficulty. Obviously, he's gone through bankruptcy sometimes. He's made millions. He's lost millions. And I've got nothing against the man. But as a presidential candidate, we're looking for someone to do the biggest job on the planet, to represent the biggest economy on the planet. He's not the guy to do it because you have to have some background in politics. We need a governor to step up and run for the presidency, which we have a couple, and that's someone who has the executive experience to do the job. I don't see Donald Trump as having that, but I do. Okay. I got nothing against him.
Okay, Brandon, what do you think?
He's a carnival sideshow with really bad hair. I mean, whenever you begin by making your announcements by just heaping insult upon insult, and you're expecting that to be presidential. I mean, you can't even play nice to Charles Crawhammer. You insult him, the fact that he's in a wheelchair. I mean, it just keeps going, one thing after another when he talks. He's nothing more than a sideshow, just trying to get some publicity because that's the only thing that brings him joy. He's filthy rich. So, you know what? I'd be a public sideshow. I make some headlines. I make Google's keyword search for the day, pat myself on the back, and tell everybody how great I am.
What do you think, Lisa?
Well, I got to tell you, this is not a debate because we all agree. So I'm going to say something very stupid. Donald Trump, you're fired.
There you go.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you know what? But that's appropriate because
his show. Were only that easy.
It would only be that easy. You know, right? You guys heard that. He can't have his The Apprentice cannot run this year because NBC won't run it because he's running for the presidency. So he actually is fired in that aspect.
Right, you're fired. Exactly.
Maybe now let's flip it to the other side. Bernie Sanders, real outsider with a lot of, I think, good ideas on trying to change this country. He seems to be gaining traction. I mean, at first people were saying, he's too old. He's too out there with his ideas and people won't buy into it. I think he had 1 or 2 percentage points and he then went to 4 to 8 to 10. Now he's up to 15 percentage points in recent polls. What do you make of this change? And do you think he actually has a chance to get to the debate stage and debate Hillary at some point? We'll start with you, Stacey.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, let me just say, it's interesting to see Bernie Sanders out there espousing some things that people actually find interesting. But this man is a socialist. Now, you know what socialism is. It's where the money is constantly redistributed to those who certain individuals feel deserve it more than the people who earned it. So I want to keep all of my money. Now, the government takes quite a sizable chunk right now as it is. I'm fine with paying my taxes. I'm down with, keeping myself within the law. But socialism, not no, but hell no. Mm-mm.
All right, Lisa. So we got a hell no to that and a big double hell no to Trump. Okay,
don't talk about my money. That's where I go when you start talking about my money.
In this phone conversation,
don't take her money, don't take her guns. All right, so Lisa,
exactly.
In this phone conversation, I must say I'm glad to be a Democrat because y'all Republicans are looking crazy right now with a gaggle of yous trying to battle on the track. So I guess when the smoke clears, let the best man win. So I can't really tell on that side, like, who's going to end up standing up. Because you've got Governor Christie that's getting into the game. You've got this crazy come-over dude getting into the game. I don't know. Now, socialism, I mean, that's what you're calling it. But I don't have a problem with programs that we may need for those who do need it, not abuse it. So when someone is elders and they retire, they should get their Social Security. If somebody needs a little hand up and they need a little food stamp because they lost their job and they can't find a job, they need to get that. But now,
okay, so what's your thoughts on Bernie Sanders? What do you think, Brandon?
Well, let me just follow up and say, Bernie's not campaigning for socialist programs. Bernie is a socialist. He's been part of the Socialist Party, so it's a little bit different. But it is interesting to see where we are as a country, where the socialists now is gaining ground in the latest New Hampshire poll. And she kind of mocked the Republican candidates, but look, we have a Secretary of State who was completely incompetent, who made blunder after blunder, who left office just humiliated in the wake of the Benghazi fiasco, running against socialist Mr. Sanders, and Martin O'Malley, who in the wake of the Baltimore crisis is now running for president. So I don't think that the Democrats have really brought a lot to the table either. Now, with that said, we're still kind of in the wake of talking about Donald Trump, so I probably should just wrap up there because that's just absolutely embarrassing.
All right. Folks, we're out of time. I'm going to pose one more question out there right now. If you had your bets on who you think are going to end up as a Republican and Democratic nominees, who do you think it's going to be? We'll start with you, Stacey.
It's definitely going to be Hillary on the Democrat side. And the polls are showing that people are getting a little tired and they wish there was someone else, but there isn't. And so it's Hillary. And people are going to vote for her on the Democrat side because they either do support her or they feel like there's nobody on the right they can support. On the right, I really hope that Carly Fiorina comes out in the end as the VP and that it's one of the governors who ends up with the actual, nomination for the ticket. Anybody but Jeb Bush, obviously. Donald Trump not being a serious candidate, I don't really count him. He's not going to get the numbers. And that's how I think it's going to crack out.
Nah, that's not an answer, Stacey. You got to give me a name. Who do you think? Throw a name out there. That's a non-answer. Right. One of the governors. Come on. Who do you think?
I like Perry. I like Walker. Cruz is not a governor, but he has the numbers, so maybe it's Cruz.
All right. Let's go to you, Lisa. Who do you think is going to end up being the two nominees?
I'm going to jump off of a cliff. Hopefully my parachute will open. And I will say, of course, Hillary Clinton, for different reasons than my opponent just said. So I'll let her live with that. And I do think Jeb Bush, which I think, okay, whatever. But I do think Jeb Bush is a strong contender, and we're going to see Jeb Bush try to remix what his brother and his dad did before him. However, I do feel that any politician who wants to get the black vote better be talking about Black Lives Matter. And I'm afraid that Jeb Bush won't be doing that because he stayed his ass out of South Carolina today. That's a problem. He let blacks know right away by doing that, I really don't need your vote and I don't care about you. So I think Hillary is going to not only be a strong contender, she's going to win the election.
All right, Brandon, you're going to close it out. Who are the two nominees?
Well, until Elizabeth Warren gets in the race, I guess we're still going to be stuck with Hillary on the Democratic side. It's just a landslide at this point. The Republican side is still way too early to tell. Jeb Bush is with his just a mountain of money and all of that. And I don't think if he can't make a move in the polls early, then they'll back Rubio and they'll push Rubio through because he's Bush light. He's just the exact same politics. He's a mentor to Bush and all of that. And my personal preference would be Cruz or even Rand Paul. Scott Walker would be my third favorite, especially amongst the governors. But yeah, it's still way too much right now. It's Bush is to lose because of the amount of money that's behind him.
All right.
And that's not because I want him. I can't stand it. But
I can't stand him either.
I certainly hope we don't get another Clinton, another Bush. My thing is this: let's get some fresh faces, new ideas out there. I wish we could expand more beyond Democrats and Republicans. Let's get some real, truly independents out there that'll vote their hearts and move on from really being controlled by lobbyists and all these rich corporations. With that said, I want to thank
you. Said a mouthful. I agree.
Well, thanks. I want to thank our very spirited panel tonight. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Stacey Washington,
I did too.
and Brandon Jones.
Thank
I want to
you,
get you
guys.
guys back
Nice
again.
to meet you guys.
When I said this
Same
was
here,
going to
nice
be
to meet
hell
both
in
of
a
you.
cell, no holds barred. Boy, who knew going into this? Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.